through applying the skills that they learn within school within the work environment. That real life experience is just crucial for our students. We'd love to see more workplaces and more utility companies or different companies across the island also join initiatives like that.
For generations, the financial services industry has played a critical role in the success and prosperity of the Cayman Islands. It's not just about numbers, it's about people. 2/3 of the people in the financial services industry are Caymanian. Their skill, commitment, and hard work power this industry. Together, we are building a stronger, more sustainable future for Cayman. Cayman Finance. Let's thrive together.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
The election news you need, the coverage you want, all in one place. Streaming on cable and Compass TV with live updates on Cayman Compass. The analysis, the reactions, in real time, only with Compass Media.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Political Party Leaders Debate. On behalf of the Chamber Council and staff, I'd like to thank the three party leaders, Mr. Joseph Yu from the People's Progressive Movement, Mr. Andre Ebanks from the Caymanian Community Party, and Mr. Daniel Scott from the Cayman Islands National Party for participating in this historic event. This debate marks a significant first for the Chamber, bringing the party leaders together on one stage to discuss the same issues and offer voters a side-by-side comparison of their party's plans, priorities, and policies. This builds on our long-standing candidate forum series, held every election year since 1988, and reflects the Chamber's commitment to informed and engaged civic participation. Tonight's topics are based on voter input and the Chamber's surveys and reflect our island's most pressing issues. These include the cost of living, immigration, education, infrastructure, human rights, The debate is broadcast live from the Chamber's headquarters in Governor Square with full media access, ensuring transparency and fairness for all voters. And now it's time to begin. Please welcome tonight's moderators, Chamber CEO Will Panu and Chamber Councillor Tammy Solomon. Will and Tammy, over to you.
Thank you, Amari. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Good evening.
So tonight's forum is a vital opportunity for voters to hear directly from the leaders of the three major political parties as they share their plans and priorities for the Cayman Islands. The Chamber of Commerce hosts this event to ensure an informed, respectful, and productive national conversation. Tammy and I will guide the discussion to ensure fairness and help keep the focus on the issues that matter most to viewers and voters. So I'm going to introduce each of the candidates for this evening and provide some background about each of their political parties. We'll begin with Mr. Joseph Yu. He's the leader of the People's Progressive Movement. Founded in 2002, the party focuses on economic growth, infrastructure, and public services. Its platform centers on practical solutions for key national challenges, including housing, the cost of living, traffic, jobs, crime, and education. Welcome, Mr. Yu.
Thank you.
Next, we turn to Mr. Andre Ebanks. He's the leader of the Caymanian Community Party. Founded in 2025, the party is focused on balancing the needs of the people, the economy, and the environment. The party advocates for sustainable development, accessible housing, healthcare, and education, with a mission to build a resilient Cayman Islands that puts Caymanians first. Welcome.
Thank you, Will.
And we'll have, next is Mr. Daniel Scott. He's the leader of the Cayman Islands National Party. Founded in 2025, the party focuses on family, community, and opportunity values and advocates for sustainable growth and restoring the Caymanian dream. It prioritizes education, healthcare, housing, and national heritage. Welcome, gentlemen. I'm now going to turn it over to Tammy, who's going to provide some background as to the rules for tonight's debate.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Thank you
evening.
for being here.
Good evening.
Tonight's debate format is as follows. Each topic presented, and for everyone, this applies. One leader will have 2 minutes to respond. The other two leaders will have 1 minute to share their perspectives. The original speaker will then have an additional 1 minute for rebuttal. Only the speaking candidate's microphone will be active to keep the discussion clear and respectful. Moderators may ask follow-up questions to expand on or clarify responses. And now we turn our attention to candidate interaction and conduct. Leaders may direct questions to each other. That's not a problem, provided they remain respectful and relevant as part of their response or rebuttal time. Personal attacks or off-topic comments will not be allowed. Time limits will be strictly enforced. You can see the clock there on your screens. And disruptions may result in a loss of speaking time. And again, we want to thank all three candidates for participating. We will take a short commercial break and we will begin the debate when we return. Please stay tuned.
Okay.
CUC has assisted the National Trust in many ways. They've been corporate sponsors for the National Trust for many, many years. So they're supporting all of our programs in general in that way. And the National Trust, of course, works to preserve everything that's special about Cayman, including our historic places and our ecosystems that occur here and nowhere else in the world, and endemic species like blue iguanas and Cayman parrots and so many other things. So we're really grateful for just the general funds that they donate every year. But they've also been so super important in sponsoring specific projects as well. So they help us with our Bat House program. This was particularly important after Hurricane Ivan. So we went out on the island to almost every public school and put up bat houses to help the bat population recover. Having their partnership on that has been instrumental in making that a success, because of course CUC has the equipment to make that possible.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
For generations, the financial services industry has played a critical role in the success and prosperity of the Cayman Islands. It's not just about numbers, it's about people. 2/3 of the people in the financial services industry are Caymanian. Their skill, commitment, and hard work power this industry. Together, we are building a stronger, more sustainable future for Cayman. Cayman Finance. Let's thrive together.
The election news you need, the coverage you want, all in one place. Streaming on cable and Compass TV with live updates on Cayman Compass. The analysis, the reactions in real time, only with Compass Media.
Welcome back. You're watching the Chamber of Commerce Party Leaders Debate, and we're going to get straight into it. Gentlemen, are you ready?
Ready. We're ready.
Very good. Mr. Hugh, we'll start with you. And the first question is based on the cost of living. And I should also add that we have done this debate alongside our three pillars. So in line with that. So we're going to start with advancing quality of life, cost of living. We know that the high cost of living remains a top concern for residents, and it has been addressed by every candidate who has come to these chamber forums. We've heard it from health insurance and housing to groceries and energy bills. Affordability is being strained across the board. People want to keep the roofs over their heads and their children fed and in school. Mr. Hugh, what policies would your party implement to reduce the cost of living for Caymanians?
Thank you for the question. The CPI 2024 Q4 report said that prices have risen by nearly 24%. In the same period, house rent went up by 36%. And in the 2022 to 2023 period, persons seeking poor relief increased by 50%. That is according to the Compendium of Statistics 2023. We have to increase the minimum wage. I cannot believe that it has taken this long to come to an agreement to increase the minimum wage. When you're working with your constituents and you have single parents coming in with 2 kids, and they get a job even at $8, $9, or $10 an hour, and then they have to hire a babysitter an hour before they go to work and an hour after they go to work. Get home from work, rather. When you look at their balance at the end of the week, sometimes they are actually at a negative. They're spending more money than they're actually making. By the time you take out health insurance for the 2 kids, health insurance for themselves, pension, and sometimes uniform, they go home with a negative balance at the end of the week. We have to address this and address this swiftly. We have to deal with health insurance, the burden that it costs on our people, especially single parents. We have to do pension reform, and we have to deal with the minimum wage. What we've also noticed while we've been out canvassing is that the elderly are one of the groups that are really struggling with health insurance. Some are giving it up and just praying and relying on the Lord that nothing really happens. Some are leaving the country because they cannot afford health insurance at their age. We have to address this as a priority.
Mr. Ebanks, your rebuttal.
Thank you, Tammy, and thank you, and good evening, Cayman. The first thing we have to do before you can get to any of that is stabilize the finances of the country. The pre-election financial update shows that this country is now in a deficit, and that is from the big spenders that are now in Mr. Hughes' party. Most of that lavish spending happened after my colleagues and I resigned because we knew we had to stand up for what was right. You have to get a handle on the finances, because now with a global trade war, even with its slight departure today, this could go on for ages. So you have to be able to now stabilize the finances. That's why it was necessary to have a rainy day fund so that you could better implement essentials. If you needed financial assistance, what he was talking about, education, healthcare, all of that relies on the strength of the government. Beyond that, we need to execute a plan for LNG to get electricity bills down. We have to be able to move to utility scale solar as quickly as possible. We also have to be able to put into the building codes efficient energy homes so that we can get bills down. We also need to look at our duty, because that's our stamp duty code, to actually put down the duty to zero for healthy foods. And if there are junk foods out there, to expand it then to have healthier living. Also, the healthcare insurance, we have to have a level playing field for all. It is time for a tiered national plan that everybody pays into, except for certain categories: indigent, children, elderly persons, and for those who can afford it, can have private options above and beyond that, and to fix the pension system. This is no time for unstable finances. We need to be able to get in there, get the finances under control from these big spenders, and work on cost of living as a priority.
Thank you, Mr. Ebanks. Mr. Scott? You'll have a little bit more time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess my starting point is I'm pleased to see that Mr. Hugh and the Progressives are finally waking up to where their failed policies and the impact it has had on Caymanians at all levels. This is not something new. They now tout increase in the minimum wage. That's long overdue, as well as taking care of our elderly and everyone else.
This country is in a mess. And it is in a mess because of the progressives' consistent failed policies. And we are now faced with the current-led progressive government doing it all over again. And indeed, you would have seen the pre-election financial results. It is downright scary. They don't have the ability to do it. They've failed every time they've tried, and they will fail again.
Mr. Hugh.
Thank you. Interesting to hear the two responses. Listening to my colleague here, Mr. Ebanks from the CCP, speak about a government that he was a part of for 3.5 years, and in fact was a deputy premier. And he was deputy premier when the budget was passed. And I'll just go to the Hansards of 12th December 2023, the budget session. He says, I'm going to end with Abraham Lincoln, who said, speaking about the United States, of course, if this nation is ever destroyed, it will not be from without, but from within. And I'll repeat that. Abraham Lincoln, former US president, if this nation is ever destroyed, it will not be from without, but from within. The central challenge in our hands, colleagues, and there's a lot, and I give the current honorable premier full marks for completing the presentation of a budget in highly compressed fashion. We should all thank her for it. This would be a different place if we were past the 31st of December. Thank you, ma'am. Pass is a pass. Let's reach across the aisles, Mr. Speaker. Let us find compromise and let us, per the title of the Honorable Premier's budget address, lay the foundation for people's well-being. And now he's saying that they overspent. And to answer my colleague from the Cayman Islands, from the National Party, 2013, heels of the recession, UK controlled the budget. We became compliant within 2 years. We reduced the debt by nearly 60%. From 538 million to 339 million in 7 years. 7 years of surpluses pre-COVID, totaling some 750 million, with no borrowing, and at the same time, implementing a minimum wage and carrying out national projects.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh. We're going to move on to the next topic, which is going to be the same vein of advancing quality of life. We're going to deal with affordable housing. And the preamble reads that affordable housing remains one of the most pressing challenges facing residents. Rising property costs, limited availability of land, and increasing construction expenses have made home ownership and even stable rental housing out of reach for many Caymanians. The demand for long-term sustainable solutions continues to grow, particularly for young families, essential workers, and lower-income residents. So the question I'll pose to Mr. Andre Ebanks is, what is your party's plan to increase access to affordable housing for Caymanians, and how will you ensure these solutions are financially sustainable and delivered on time?
Thank you. I'm glad you raised financially sustainable, because I stand by the quote that Mr. Hugh just read at the time of passing the budget, because what I didn't know at the time is that there were PPM members in disguise. And I still stood to be corrected. Stand to be corrected because the quote is still true. It still did dissolve from within because of those members. So to get to the housing, we need to reintroduce the GGHAM program, now called HOME, and activate that as quickly as possible so there's zero down mortgage payments for Caymanians. We need to raise the upper limit of the stamp duty waivers so that we can get that moving. That was something that was been talked about over and over in caucus, and finally something was slightly done in the end, but we still need to actually now move to an even more sophisticated system for stamp duty. If you're over the 650, let's pay the difference on that. That's our tax code. Why have the person pay full freight? Because we know how high the property prices are, and these are Caymanians now in middle class neighborhoods. These aren't extravagant places, but the cost is so high, they're not getting the full benefit of the Caymanian stamp duty break. In addition to that, we need to finally get on the books modular housing. Time has moved on. There's past now these containers like poor apple blossoms in West Bay. Now they're actually innovative solutions that are hurricane rated that can reduce the cost of building. We need to now go to rent. We had a rent tenancy act that was sitting on the shelf, and for reasons beyond that escaped me, the current premier failed to bring that to the House. It could have had a rental housing unit, transparency, a standardized lease. Airbnb was licensed uncontrollably under the progressives government, just exploded the housing market, and that affects social housing because now the rents are so high and the indigent population relies solely on private sector landlords. Government has to get in the game with its own social transitional housing that's either managed or controlled by the government in order to have indigents in the right places, spread throughout the community so that you don't create a dangerous situation. But we can't have our people homeless, and begging hotels is not the answer anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Ebanks. Mr. Scott?
So dating back to 2013, I'll reflect on that, as Mr. Hugh pointed out. There was one thing that the progressives had then that unfortunately they don't have now, and that was Marco Archer. Since that, it's all been downhill. Before that, it was the same. As it relates to housing, the challenge here has been for us is that we've had unfettered development, we've had unfettered immigration, and we've allowed foreign investors, wealthy foreign investors, and that's who we've been giving concessions to and encouraging them to build. We need to get back to focusing on Caymanians first. We need to ensure that any concessions we are given when it comes to housing are focused on first-time Caymanian homeowners. Just that as a beginning. Added to that, the whole idea of Airbnb and that rental conglomerate, we need to be mindful and properly regulate that to ensure our Caymanians have access to affordable housing.
Mr. Hugh?
Thank you. Just to respond to the housing, I brought a motion to the House that led to the resignation of the Honorable Wayne Panton. That motion was all about affordable housing. I outlined about 6 programs that we could have implemented immediately, but the Premier at the time said, do not vote for the motion, but some of his members did vote for the motion. They still never carried out the programs, but as a result of that, the Honorable Premier then, Mr. Panton, resigned, including a no confidence vote that came after that his colleague here and now the leader abstained from. Now to Mr. Scott's point, Mr. Archer was a wonderful Minister of Finance. But let me read the numbers. 2012-13, the surplus, 56,370. 2013-14, 99,967. 2014-15, 124,859. 2015-16, 130,333. 2016-17, 92,694. Here's where Mr. McTaggart took over. 2018, 165,714. 2019, 143,799 pre-COVID. Of course, COVID, we did not perform as well for the obvious reasons. But to say that we did nothing and that we could not control our finances, I don't know if he's referring to his EY report that we didn't follow in selling off all of our assets. But
thank you, Mr. Hugh.
Thank you.
As a follow-up, Mr. Ebanks, another question related to this. Will you propose rent caps, landlord incentives, or tenancy protections as part of your policy changes?
Under the bill that was prepared but never produced or tabled or gazetted, there was protections for landlords both ways. Because anybody who's been in a landlord or tenant situation know that at the end of the day in that relationship, someone feels aggrieved. So the purpose of that act was to have the unit inspections on properties, because some of these properties are absolutely deplorable, and to also have protections both ways for the landlord and the tenant.
And Mr. Scott, is that something that your party would agree with?
As far as what are you suggesting? I'm not quite sure whether we're debating you or we're debating each other. What is your question, sir?
The question to Mr. Ebanks was, will you propose rent caps, landlord incentives, or tenancy protections?
Reality is it needs to be well-rounded and balanced. It is not just the rent caps that doesn't answer the question. So we would not propose any of that, but we would propose a balanced approach between landlord and tenants. What we will be focused on is the whole idea of foreign investors banking property and foreign investors who don't even live in the Cayman Islands, significantly impacting our rental properties and otherwise. So those are things we will consider and work on.
And Mr. Hugh?
Yeah, certainly. I think, I don't know about rental caps, but I do believe there is a draft act done by the Law Society on the landlords and draft landlords and tenancy act. We certainly would want to implement that to protect both the landlords and the tenants. And yeah, we do have to look into this. There are accommodations out there that are way below standards for living here in the Cayman Islands, and it must be addressed as a priority.
Over to you.
Turning our attention now
Do I still get a rebuttal?
Yes, you could.
Thank you.
Mr. Ebanks.
Thank
Mr.
you
Ebanks, sorry.
Thank you very much. To rebut, folks at home, listen to me clearly. It is beyond a joke for Joey to suggest that the reason for the former Premier Wayne Panton's resignation was his motion. The reason for his resignation was repeated rocky coup attempts from his government, from his opposition, not government, to make the government destabilized, and then 2 members quit without passing a budget. I abstained because I knew that it was a farce that was happening in that motion. So that has nothing to do with his motion. What I also would want to say is the other thing that's a real opportunity for the country is now that reinsurance business is coming to Cayman, I've challenged the Reinsurance Association to see how they could help us with wider regional pools so that we can help with home insurance reduction.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Ebanks.
Jinx. We are going to turn our attention now to infrastructure priorities and government spending. And Mr. Scott, this will be to you to start this one off. So, preamble. As the Cayman Islands continues to grow, so do the pressures on physical and social infrastructure. Many areas require investment, road improvements, waste management, climate resilience, schools, healthcare facilities, and community services. We know these by rote. At the same time, government resources are limited, and prioritizing infrastructure spending has become a key test of leadership and vision. So the question we put to you is, what are the top 2 infrastructure projects, physical or social, that your party would prioritize if elected? And how do those choices reflect your approach to government spending and long-term planning?
Thank you very much for the question. I think we would have all seen the pre-election financial report. So I think we sit at a pretty scary place right now and not sure what we have available, not only to deal with infrastructure projects, but just the basic as far as operating the government and indeed what we have available to look after our most vulnerable. As it relates to infrastructure, there are certain pressing needs that we do have. One, for example, is the East-West Arterial Road and dealing with that. The other thing that we are focused on, it's certainly not a park in Georgetown, but there are other things that we do need to consider. First of all, we need to understand how much we have available to do these things. And in addition to that, we need to make sure it is something that is done in a clearly defined plan, not all trying to do it in 1 year, but a clearly defined plan over a period of time to do that. Other things that we do need to focus on as a matter of priority are things that we're dealing with the elderly. So from our standpoint, infrastructure is important and we need to deal with it on an urgent basis, those that come up. But outside of that, we really do need to get back and stabilize the finances of this country. It is in an awful position when you are facing already this year a $26 million deficit and possibly next year another 44 million, which means that we are offside as it relates to the framework of fiscal responsibility. And we put ourselves in the very dangerous position that the UK may come in and have far more control over our finances than they should. It is a shame where we're at. And again, the current progressive-led government has put us in this very awful state.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Hugh?
Thank you. I keep hearing Mr. Scott say progressive-led government. I know he's new to politics, but I think the current government is called a UPM, and the government before that was the PAC, which I know Mr. Ebanks here is well aware of both of those. But anyway, just a lesson in politics. We would certainly have to look at the landfill. I think that is going to be a priority for us, whether we move to recycling immediately to buy us some time, but we are going to have to find another place to tip our garbage because the current landfill is running out of space rapidly and could be and is potentially a major disaster in the waiting. The East-West Arterial is certainly there, but we have to also look at public transport holistically. The East-West Arterial will not answer all of the questions, so we do have to look at public transport holistically when we're talking about traffic. The Sunrise Adult Training Center is somewhere near and dear to my heart. We had plans for a new facility. I understand that they're actually having to do rotation of the adults there at that center. And then also we have to continue to develop the mental health facility.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh. Mr. Ebanks.
Folks, I think Mr. Scott could be forgiven for any lack of confusion, because now that all of the PPM are all wrapped into the same party, I think that's what you meant, sir. And I would agree with you. In terms of top priorities, again, there's very little movement in terms of what you can do from capital based on that economic report. So the next government is going to have a challenge on its hands to have to now prioritize. You can't have grand plans anymore because of the state of the finances. It's limiting the next government's opportunity based on a smash and grab job for certain MPs to boost their electoral chances in their constituencies without thinking of the country and you all as a whole. We do have a disaster in regen that we have to get to grips of. We have to get a grips of traffic and continue with the east-west arterial. And for the young folks out there, we need, for the first time, to establish a youth mental health facility in this country to arrest the stress of youth mental health. Sunrise is on its way. It already moved from West Bay for the first time in at least 12 years, and is now central, and then the plan for that will continue.
Mr. Scott.
Thank you. It's interesting Mr. Hugh refers to the Regen project. They had a wonderful opportunity to deal with that, but as you read the Auditor General's report, it was clearly they did a really, really bad deal. And we're sitting here today having spent over $32 million on the dump for nothing. So as we look at it, I mean, I think we have a real concern about handing it back to the progressives to get another do-over. As it relates to the question of the progressive-led government, 3 of the current ministers of the government are all progressives, and indeed, the current leader, the premier, is also progressive. So I can only conclude it is a progressive-led government, whether they were prior to formally declaring that they were part of the progressives, they were in hiding, but as it sits right now, it's a progressive-led government.
I do have a clarification question for Mr. Ebanks in regards to the youth mental health facility that you mentioned. Does the mental health facility that just got built, can that handle the youth mental health facility aspect you mentioned, or do you think that we need a separate facility altogether?
Don't see how Ponciana can handle that load, and it's not specifically designed for that purpose. This now needs to be a separate facility designed bespoke for youth mental health.
Okay.
We'll turn the next question over, excuse me, Mr. Hugh. Then deals with government finances and FFR compliance. The 2025 pre-election economic and financial update projects a significant shift from surplus to deficit, with the government forecast to breach key principles of responsible financial management under the framework for fiscal responsibility. The report predicts a $26.2 million deficit for 2025 and warns of FFR noncompliance through 2026. The question is, what concrete steps would your party take to restore compliance and improve government financial performance?
Thank you. Obviously, the very first step would be to prioritize fiscal prudence and introduce strategic reforms in areas such as pension, healthcare, and public investment. We also have to look at the civil service. We had a 60% growth in the civil service over the last 3 years. I think 30% of that were expatriate workers. So we do have to look at that. And I believe that within the civil service, because a lot of the funding here is recurrent expenditure, that being staffing as well, and a huge increase and projected increase in staffing. But we had a lot of ministries that were broken up that I think we can put them back together and realize savings. You had culture and heritage separated. You had environment and sustainability separated. There's a lot of synergies that you can work to put back together that will save us funding on the recurrent side. We have to be concerned with the risks. We have to pay attention to the global shocks, such as economic downturns and regulation changes as we see happening as we speak. local disasters such as hurricanes, another landfill fire, God forbid, post-election policy changes which impact your projections, and of course the over-reliance on tourism and financial services pose a risk for us. So we do have to continue to look at inward investment and look at ways to diversify our economy.
Mr. Ebanks?
Thank you for the question. It is so timely and on point. First of all, before you could get to any of that, you have to see if we can scale down any of these current vanity projects that are only for a select few and not for the many. In addition to that, it is time now, from my experience as a civil servant, minister, and deputy premier, to re-examine the budgetary process of the civil service and move to outcome-based budgeting and reporting. So you have better access on the spending that's occurring, and enhanced transparency and increased accountability, because right now what happens is that the pie is the pie. Everyone gets a historical slice, and it's a use it or lose it mentality. We have to move away from that, reorganize the budget, and put it towards the items that we know are going to generate returns, uplift financial services so that its budget is commensurate with what it brings in. And as you're making money, you can then make reallocations and reinvest in other areas.
Mr. Scott?
Thank you. I'm concerned when I hear us refer to that we're overstaffed at the civil service. And I want to make sure we're not talking about laying Caymanians off. At this point in time, they need every opportunity. And indeed, we have, I think, a pretty outstanding group of people in the civil service. These are folks who work hard. And what I would start with is ask them to figure out how we do this. Because I'm fearful that what has happened to date is folks come in and they have vanity projects that they want work on. And in order to do that, you have to hire resources to deliver on those. So I want to make sure that that's where we're focused, not talking about downsizing or laying Caymanians off in any way, shape, or form. We will obviously have to continue to figure out what are we doing, and that is going to be day one, understanding where we're at, because the consequences in failure to do that is dire.
Mr. Hugh?
Thank you. And just to say that I made sure to mention that 30% of the new hires in the civil service were expatriate. So I just want to make sure that I was not speaking about any Caymanian civil servants or cutting jobs for Caymanians. That's why I made sure to differentiate the number of expatriate new hires over the last couple of years. I just want to wrap up by saying that just like we did coming out of the 2008 recession, the PPM proved that we could take the country back on the right track. We entered the government in 2013 when the UK had control of our budget. Within 2 years, we had our budget back. We continued then for another 7 years to post surpluses. And that was done through prudent financial management. In the same way, we were able to then make the tough decisions during COVID to save lives of Caymanians and continue to operate the government based on the savings that we had because of the prudent financial management that the PPM are known for.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh, and thank you to all three gentlemen for getting us off to the start of the Chamber of Commerce Party Leaders Debate. We certainly appreciate it. We are going to take a quick break. When we return, we move to our second pillar, sustaining economic success. Mr. Ebanks, I'm looking at you. You're going to kick that one off. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com.
For generations, the financial services industry has played a critical role in the success and prosperity of the Cayman Islands. It's not just about numbers, it's about people. 2/3 of the people in the financial services industry are Caymanian. Their skill, commitment, and hard work power this industry. Together, we are building a stronger, more sustainable future for Cayman. Cayman Finance. Let's thrive together.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
The election news you need, the coverage you want, all in one place. Streaming on cable and Compass TV with live updates on Cayman Compass. The analysis, the reactions in real time, only with Compass Media.
Welcome back to the Chamber of Commerce Parties Leader Debate. We're now moving into the next pillar called Sustaining Economic Success, and I'll turn it over to Tammy for the next question.
Thank you, Will. And Mr. Ebanks, this one goes to you. It's about financial services. I know you know a thing or two about that. Financial services contribute to over 50% of Cayman's GDP and provides thousands of jobs. It makes it one of the, if not the most critical industry. However, the sector is facing global regulatory pressure. This is something that's been going on for a long time and it's not letting up, and local policy challenges. What is your party's strategy to ensure the continued success and competitiveness of the financial services industry?
Thank you, Tammy. To set the scene, coming into office in 2021, we had a financial services industry that was on international risk lists, was deflated, and not funded appropriately. The strategy coming in was threefold. One, get off all the lists, freshen some of the products, and then try to find 2 to 3 growth areas that could complement the existing industry. I'm happy to say that all 3 were done within 2021. After getting off all the lists, we passed legislation to enhance private wealth, trust, merchant shipping for maritime affairs. Companies had a refresh to get the industry excited again. And the 3 growth areas that we identified was reinsurance, family office, and tech. The reason for that, this answers your question, is reinsurance is linked to our funds product. We can now become a one-stop shop. Reinsurance provides jobs for Caymanians. I know Caymanians in my constituencies that have gotten jobs, top-notch jobs in reinsurance. Family office, they're easy on the infrastructure. They also bring jobs, and they're also very altruistic and provide charitable donations, that they've already started to do that. And tech, hugely important, which fed into innovation, because those are the jobs of the future. So by bringing them in and having their expertise, we then need to diversify our product. In terms of the regulatory threats, we need to, one, have a greater increased resources for all of our key agencies. We need those who have it within their budget to relax rules so they can pay salaries and attract Caymanians to stay within those agencies so that we have top-notch talent. And then in addition to that, have a healthier budget for Cayman Finance.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Thank you. Having spent 40 years in the financial services industry, I can assure you we've faced challenges and we will continue to face challenges. the world changes, we innovate. International bodies, rules change, and we have done overall an outstanding job in dealing with those. So will there be challenges in the future? Yes. But again, with the industry working closely with government, we've been able to deal with those, and indeed we've been able to be incredibly innovative and deliver first class and indeed globally leading legislation that has put us in a great position. We need to continue to do that. What has happened, unfortunately, is we have been underinvesting in financial services because we do need to get more front-footed and get out there and tell our good news story, which I think we do have a really good news story, and deliver that to the world.
Thank you. Mr. Hugh.
Certainly. Thank you. The financial services being the largest pillar of our economy, I think it, as many have said here, the other two have said, it's important that we treat it that way. We must remain vigilant, and we must keep up with global compliant. We must remain globally compliant and competitive. The PPM government actioned 60 of the 63 recommendations in the 2019 FATF review. Just to answer that, we are prepared and have the experience to continue to keep us off the gray list and to continue to ensure that we are globally competitive and globally compliant. We also plan to redevelop the network of overseas offices and permanent residences in Washington and Brussels, and work with the sector to keep pace with new technologies such as AI. And we'll make sure that we have the Caymanian workforce trained and ready to enjoy the jobs and have the infrastructure to be AI ready as a jurisdiction.
Thank you. Mr. Ebanks, to you.
As a brief rebuttal, Joey is talking about is 60 out of 63 is that the PPM unfortunately fell short and the country ended up on the FATF gray list. And the consequence of that was the EU AML list, the US high risk list, and the UK high risk list. They came up short. The difference, which really goes to the core of Tammy's question, is a minister and a deputy premier that is engaged and prepared to make the trip side by side with the attorney general, to engage in a meaningful way and not just let the staff go because you don't want to take the political risk, and sit at the table to defend the Cayman Islands. That was the difference in terms of moving the ball forward, because they want to hear directly from the policymaker. And now relationships have been forged. Many of these folks are now comrades. They're now colleagues to have them on WhatsApp. That's the difference that it's going to take. In addition to that, we also in the overseas offices need to put in the Monetary Authority, as one has already agreed, to sit in the overseas offices so that in other time zones, our stakeholders and partners can get assistance in real time in their time zone.
Well, gentlemen, we're now going to turn our attention to the next pillar of our economy, which is tourism management and sustainability. So as we know, tourism is one of the pillars of our economy, yet the sector faces growing pressures. From beach erosion and environmental degradation to the lack of cruise passenger amenities at the Georgetown port, there are mounting concerns about long-term sustainability and competitiveness of the tourism product. At the same time, the industry struggles to balance visitor volume, quality of experience, and attract and retain Caymanians in key roles within the sector. Well, this question's to you, Mr. Scott, for first round here. What is your party's strategy to manage our tourism industry sustainably, balancing quality with quantity while addressing environmental concerns and infrastructure needs and improving Caymanian participation in the industry?
Thank you very much for the question. When you look in 7 Mile Beach, and indeed if you look in Cayman Brac, the people that built the tourism industry were Caymanians, Cayman Brackers, and those from Little Cayman. It is absolutely shocking today that you go into most of our hotels, restaurants, and otherwise, and it's difficult to spot the Caymanian. That is not good enough. One of my colleagues, Mr. Gary Ruddy, when they operated Comfort Suites, were able to boast a 90% Caymanian staff complement. That can be done. It should be done. However, when I said to him, how did you manage to do that? His answer was simple, is we paid them well, and they delivered for him. That overall is the problem with Caymanians within the hospitality industry. They're really good at it, but we have to pay them a fair wage to have them participate. As it relates to the struggles that we have with infrastructure and beach erosion, things such as that, we do need to work along with the property owners on the 7 Mile Beach to ensure that we're focused quickly on dealing with beach erosion. That, however, is something that the property owners will have to pay the cost of doing, and government will simply be there in order to facilitate it and allow it to happen as quickly as possible. More broadly, the focus has to be on quality and not quantity. We are a tiny jurisdiction, and already we see overcrowding of our beaches, our streets, and our infrastructure. And we have to make sure more money lands with Caymanians in our country and with businesses here. Thank you.
Mr. Hugh.
Thank you for the question. Tourism is near and dear to my heart. I spent most of my entire life in tourism in one way, shape, or the other. The first thing we will do is update the National Tourism Plan, and we will look both at stayover and cruise tourism. We have to deal with beach erosion. That is the biggest challenge facing the tourism product at the moment. If a building falls into the water, the press internationally will not talk about that one spot. They will say 7 Mile Beach is gone. The numbers showed it over the Thanksgiving period. The lack of action on the beach renourishment led to lower numbers during Thanksgiving, one of the peak periods of the year. So we have to deal with that, and we can do it. And we can put a tariff on or add additional taxes on the room nights, because this will not be the end of it. This will not be the only place that we will see beach erosion. It will not be the only time that we will have it. So we have to deal with it now, and we also have to plan for it in the future. We have to further develop strategic training partnerships with institutions, as we did with Johnson & Wales overseas, and also continue to develop our local tourism training program. We also have to look at things like immersion tourism and other types of tourism for the Eastern Districts.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh.
Thank you.
Move on to Mr. Ebanks.
Thank you, Will. To maybe add to what's been said so far, I think as part of a national tourism strategy, we have an enormous opportunity to redesign our tourism cycle, to build a year-round tourism cycle than something that's been cyclical in our history. Now with financial services reinvigorated and economic substance rules that's bringing shareholder meetings and conferences here, we really need to tie the two together in a much more integral way, so you have a much more even visitation route, and then capitalize on other areas of tourism in terms of heritage and sports. We now have Caymanian golfers who are on international stage. We have to maximize these opportunities so we on one showcase our talent, but then also increase the reasons for visitation, and then still support cruise, modernize our airport infrastructure so that we have a much more healthier and robust and integrated tourism product.
Mr. Scott, would you like to add anything?
Yes, thank you. I think as we look back over time with our tourism product, as well as financial services, they're inextricably linked. People come here because of the service, they come here because of the fine dining. So we cannot separate the two. However, when you look at the data around tourism and the number of Caymanians employed in it, we need to do better. We have over 8,800 folks working in the tourism industry. Only 2,200 of that are Caymanians. The other thing, and again, this is based on statistics from government, is that the average income or average salary for folks working in the tourism industry is reported to be around $17,000. That is a challenge. And again, that will not attract a great deal of Caymanians. And obviously that's spread between cruise tourism as well as those that stay overnight. So we need to be very focused on how we bring value back to Cayman around tourism overall.
Thank you. We're now going to talk about a topic that I personally feel needs to be addressed, and it's long overdue. This is about long-term planning and a national vision. So we know, it's no secret, the Cayman Islands has experienced rapid growth over the past 2 decades, yet many argue that this growth has outpaced strategic long-term planning. The last formal attempt at a national vision, known as Vision 2008, is more than 15 years old. And again, that was an attempt. Since then, concerns have continued about fragmented policies across human capital development, infrastructure, transportation, housing, education, and economic diversification. And critics say, and I would count myself as one of them, that the country lacks a clear, cohesive direction that unites government policy, private sector priorities, and community aspirations. So we're talking about that overarching policy that then feeds into all of these silos, well, not silos, but the other areas that I talked about. So the question is, and Mr. Hugh, this would be to you, to kick it off. Do you agree that the Cayman Islands has lacked a long-term national plan in recent years? If so, what would your party do to address this gap? And how would you involve the public in shaping and maintaining a shared national vision?
Thank you for that question. I certainly do agree. I spoke earlier about the National Tourism Plan. That, along with the elderly persons policy, along with other plans within different sectors, but in particular, what needs to be updated immediately, and it just baffles me that it hasn't been done in the last 4 years, is the update to the National Development Plan, commonly known as Plan Cayman. Once you have those things in place, we can then start to combine all of those plans into a plan, whatever you want to call it. We have been talking about it in our chambers as Cayman 4.0. What is the future? What does Cayman look like? What is 4.0 Cayman? What does it look like in the next 40 years? And how do we want it to look? And you're absolutely right in saying that it is time that we come together as a country to voice our opinions and put down on paper what we see the future of the Cayman Islands looking like. I did something similar during the lockdown. During COVID, I created the Special Economic Advisory Group, which Mr. Scott was a part of. That group put together a comprehensive plan for what we call then Cayman 2.0, and I'm talking about Cayman 4.0 now. But unfortunately, we ran out of time. We were not able to implement all of the recommendations, even though most of them were accepted at that time. We will go back to that and refresh that and hit the ground running with it, should we be and when we become the next government.
Mr. Ebanks?
Thank you. Tammy's question goes to the thrust of why we are at such a pivotal intersection. We are still running a lot of our economic pillars and transactions on a 90s and sometimes early 2000s framework. Plan Cayman is good, but when you come into office and you're dealing with reopening the country where there's no reopening plan and it's helter-skelter and you're having to put things together, and then you have other interests that get in the way because you need to overcome some of these interests to make the wider decisions that are in the best interest of the public. Yes, Plan Cayman is good with some modifications. It can be, but what's going to be most important to make that work is to know that everything that's connected to it, human capital, workforce development, older persons, pensions, has to go through that lens. And we had a fascinating discussion in the middle of the term when we looked at Wales that had a futures commission that tied to the youth, that if it didn't fit into that plan, it didn't get done because it wasn't in the wider interest of the country. That is going to make the implementation difference.
Thank you, Mr. Ebanks. Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Thank you. I think the common refrain today is, who are we building for? When we talk to our young people, when we hear the challenges that they have, when we talk to our elderly. And so the reality is we do need to take pause and figure out what are we doing. But any of these plans can't simply be driven by trying to satisfy wealthy foreign investors. It is about Caymanians. What do they want their country to be? And we need to make it something that it is accessible. Quite often we go to these town hall meetings, very few Caymanians show up because they don't feel that they do have a say. So when we go out to plan for the next phase, which is an absolute priority, that we do need to deal with a national development plan. As soon as we are in government, we will launch it, but it will be driven and Cayman driven, and we will make sure that we have that input along with developers, particular Cayman developers, but it must be Cayman plan that meets the needs of Caymanians.
Thank you. Mr. Hugh, do you have a follow-up to
Yeah, just a brief
those
follow-up.
responses?
Just to say that I'm glad everyone is on board with Plan Cayman now. So that should be done and dusted, that whoever wins the government will put forward Plan Cayman. We can put the politics behind it and get this plan in place, get the review of the National Development Plan underway for the betterment and the future of the country. It is important to understand that the CPA or no one else can actually make decisions outside of that National Development Plan. So everything we talk about, sustainability, beach erosion, weather patterns, all of these things, even housing falls under zoning. So all of that is under Plan Cayman or under our National Development Plan. There's also something that I omitted to speak about, and so did my two candidates here, the National Infrastructure Plan. We've never had a National Infrastructure Plan. This has to play an integral part of it as well. We always talked about, you heard about the Go East initiative. We talk about, you know, we have to decentralize and those sorts of stuff. But if we do not have a national infrastructure plan to say that this is the country's needs as far as infrastructure, and these are the ratings, this is when we need, this is a rating as far as the importance of them, that any government, because you can't fulfill all your infrastructure needs within 4 years, any government can follow that plan.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh. I do have a clarification question. I just want to be clear. So you're saying then that we need to develop these different plans. The question was about the overarching
Certainly, because
vision plan. So I just want to be clear. So does your party not think that that's needed?
no, you do need an overarching vision plan.
Okay, thank
But
you.
in order to get there, you have to have these other plans as well to come
Thank you.
to
I just
become a
wanted
part of
to
it.
ask that clarification question. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to move to another subject, which is public sector reform. And we'll start that question with Mr. Ebanks. So the Cayman Islands public sector is critical in delivering essential services and maintaining national stability. However, operating expenses, particularly personnel costs and transfer payments, have grown significantly in recent years and are now a major contributor to the projected fiscal deficit. There is rising concern that government spending could become unsustainable without structural reform. So, Mr. Ebanks, what is your party's approach to public sector reform, and how will you contain government spending while maintaining or improving the delivery of essential public services?
Thank you for the question, Will. As a former civil servant, and many of our party who have been ministers and those who are new candidates who have experience with the public sector know that a few things need to happen. One, we need to apply the rollover policy to the civil service in a grandfathered way in to ensure that Caymanians are uplifted and reach the upper echelons of their potential. Two, I mentioned earlier in the segment in relation to good governance and stabilizing the finances, to move, which is already happening in the civil service, a number of the chief officers are discussing it, to move to budget outcome based so that you don't have the system that you have now that is use it or lose it, where you actually can have savings and better transparency. You also need, finally, to incentivize those who are very hardworking civil servants, some sort of performance incentive scheme so that you'll be able to reward all of your workhorses. In addition to that, you also need to have more transparency around transfer payments. Some ministers handle it very well, some ministers do not, and then you have waste in the system. All of those things can come about with greater transparency, additional personnel policies, and then also incorporating what we were working on in e-government, artificial intelligence and technological changes. So you may not be able to have to hire more persons, but you may be able to upskill workers.
Mr. Scott?
Thank you. I think the starting point is engaging with our civil servants in a respectful manner. And let's have the conversation. When we look at our MPs, I mean, our starting point is we're giving back to Tahoes. We're going to drive our own cars to work, to and from work. But you get back to talking to the civil servants, they know exactly where we can do better, and together they will help us to figure out how we can be more efficient. We will look to ensure that we have the technology and the tools that allow them to be far more productive And so that will certainly stem the continued growth of it. We will also explore where we have hired non-Caymanians over a period of time. And for us, we would say that we will amend the immigration law to make sure that the public service is subject to the same rules as the private sector when it comes to rollover policies or indeed the path to citizenship.
Mr. Hugh?
Thank you. A lot has been said, and I agree with, and I think we all agree that it is time that the civil service falls in line on the rollover policy. As I mentioned earlier, some large percentage of the new hires were expatriate workers. And so, without understanding the details of whether they were short-term hires, whether they were specialized services, but we certainly have to consider that we cannot continue to bring in persons to work in the civil service that will end up staying forever, despite whatever their performances may be, or whatever their contributions, or if there is a young Caymanian waiting for that position. The other thing that we did when we took office in 2013 was we sat with the deputy governor and we said to him, what are the synergies between the different subjects? What suits you best? How does this make the civil service most efficient? And we sat down together as a government and with the civil service to say, okay, these subjects fit together. They work well together. There are synergies there. And this way we can streamline and have efficiencies. And then we can also talk about how do we deal with how do we prepare ourselves for what is coming up in the future? How do we prepare for AI? How do we prepare for smart government? How do we continue to prepare our online services? These are things that we do have to meet with the deputy governor on.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to take a short commercial break. Please stay tuned.
What sets CUC apart is they provide the students with a variety of opportunities for learning outside of the classroom. So the support with the holiday events as mentioned, but also through support of work experience. So the last couple of years, they've taken students to the CUC offices and supported them through applying the skills that they learn within school within the work environment. That real life experience is just crucial for our students. We'd love to see more workplaces and more utility companies or different companies across the island also join initiatives like that.
For generations, the financial services industry has played a critical role in the success and prosperity of the Cayman Islands. It's not just about numbers, it's about people. 2/3 of the people in the financial services industry are Caymanian. Their skill, commitment, and hard work power this industry. Together, we are building a stronger, more sustainable future for Cayman. Cayman Finance. Let's thrive together.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
The election news you need, the coverage you want, all in one place. Streaming on cable and Compass TV with live updates on Cayman Compass. The analysis, the reactions, in real time, only with Compass Media.
In the Cayman Islands, our habitats, including coral reefs, coastlines, and mangroves, are all dependent on one another. our economy is no different. From people to businesses, right through to government, it's all connected. And just like everyone wants a healthy ecosystem, everyone wants a healthy economy too. Cayman is a top-ranked international financial center and domicile for captives, investment funds, and pensions worldwide. And our biggest economic contributor? Construction, you ask? Not quite. Tourism? Close. It's true that we're a country of consumers, and the more people we have using our services, the more money we make. But our actual greatest economic contributor is our world-class financial services. Long ago, we had a simple economy. One person has fish, another person needs to eat. That's a transaction. Now imagine that instead of fish, it's a boat, a house, or a car, or a fleet, or business you can earn on. That's investment. But what if you're in Canada and your investment is based in China? Whose rules and regulation do you use? Cayman maintains a high level of integrity with a stable government and a UK-based legal system, globally respected for fairness. That's why so many countries choose us for these transactions. The more transactions we do, the more specialized we become, and the more our economy grows. The result? Cayman is now home to many of the world's top accountants, law firms, banks, fiduciary firms, and administrators. Unlike most countries, Cayman doesn't add an extra layer of taxes on top of tax paid in an investor's home country. That way, there's no duplication of taxation. Instead, our financial services fees ensures constant investment in our professional sector's exceptional service. Cayman's tax-neutral status combats tax evasion with legislation, regulation, and more, ensuring the highest international standards for transparency and cross-border cooperation and attracting reputable investors. All these factors make the Cayman Islands an ideal and trusted international financial center.
Welcome back to the Chamber of Commerce Party Leaders Debate. Gone through 8 questions, and I made a bit of a mistake, which I didn't allow Mr. Ebanks for a rebuttal. So on the last topic of public service reform, I'm going to give him the minute.
Thank you, Will, and I wouldn't have forgotten. Keeping them honest both ways. 2 rebuttal points, because to remind listeners at home, the question was about the civil service and enhancements, and also from a budget perspective. 2 other points I think are key. And those of you who we've worked together and been in the trenches together know it makes a difference when you have ministers who show up, who inspire you to do their work and bring you in as part of the vision. There's nothing more deflating and more demoralizing and wasteful of time and resources when you have a minister who doesn't show up or deviates from the plan, which connects back to Tammy's question in relation to the overall plan. The civil service and the elected arm has to be working with a unified team that is marching together with the same plan to execute the goals, and the whole team becomes like a family to get things done. And that's was one of the keys to the success of passing over 50 pieces of legislation in my time as a minister.
Thank you. We're now going to turn our attention to the 3rd pillar, which is building a future-ready workforce. And I think we can all agree how critical this is. And so, Mr. Scott, this will be to you in regards to immigration reform. The Immigration White Paper was released for public consideration. It includes several recommendations that will change systems currently in place for work permits, permanent residency, and Caymanian status grants. Immigration policies significantly impact the job market, population growth, and business operations. And I do want to caveat that by saying by impact, good and negative, right? So there's both that come with that. What changes would your party propose to immigration policy to balance protecting jobs for Caymanians while supporting business needs?
Thank you for the question. We stand today at a place where we have been dealing with unfettered immigration. If you look back at since 2021, 74% of all new jobs have gone to foreign workers. We need to manage that. We need to step back and say, again, who are we building for? And what are these jobs? From our standpoint, we need major immigration reform. Again, the pathway to citizenship is far too easy. We are looking at just last year alone, we granted, and this is the current progressive-led government, granted over 1,560 Caymanian statuses. That is out of control. We need to be more focused with businesses as far as requiring that they have a proper training program. When I came through the system, businesses cared. They got engaged with us. They trained us. And that's why I stand here today, having had a wonderful 40-year career with a single firm, because it mattered. They invested in Caymanians and human capital. We need immigration reform that will ensure that that happens again. All too often, I'm hearing from too many young people, these are folks coming back with outstanding degrees, master's degrees. I cannot get a job. It is the constant refrain. It is not good enough. We need immigration reform, and we will reform immigration to make sure that happens, even as we continue to support businesses with necessary grants. It cannot be that Caymanians are not prioritized. They have to be the priority.
Mr. Hugh.
Thank you. I keep hearing Mr. Scott say that the PPM-led government, we have 3 members of the PPM that were a part of the 7-member minority government, but only in the last 5.5 months. So I can't imagine that we had that, how many 16,000 or how many migrant workers arrive in the last 5.5 months. I think they had to have arrived over the last 4 years. In fact, the Labor Force Survey, when you compare fall 2019 versus spring 2024, this is when this was the PACT and the UPM government. There was a 57% increase in non-Caymanian workers. So what happened during that time, and we warned them, we raised the flags during our debates in Parliament. We warned them that what has happened is that the rate of immigration outpaced the economy. So whilst we ended up with a larger pie, everyone got a much smaller piece of that pie. So what we have to do is to slow down, and I think the first thing is enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh. Mr. Ebanks.
Thank you. To draw on a few points as it relates to the question. The immigration white paper is electioneering at its best. There was ample time for the relevant minister to bring a bill. We had caucus discussions and hardworking civil servants that had a basket of items that we've been discussing here on this stage that for the life of me cannot understand why we did not put forward that bill, because it ended up to be a strange obsession with vanity projects and national conservation, destruction of that law, rather than focus on the things that really mattered. I've discussed it in my debate or forum for West Bay South. We need a holistic approach where you improve the system, revamp PR point system, get back to removing points, accumulating points just for purchasing property, have data sharing between ministries. We need to have portfolio of civil service, education secretariat, and work. Map and design the jobs that are coming out every day. Work is sitting on a mountain of data. We need to connect those points and connect our Caymanians to jobs of the future.
Thank you, Mr. Ebanks. Mr. Scott.
Thank you. So just a couple of comments as it relates to jobs and Caymanians. Caymanians are not getting jobs because businesses are not hiring them. And folks will often say they need to be retrained. Many of them are well trained. Question is where do they get experience? And we have to be in a position that we have the training programs to give them the experience here. We are losing our talent overseas. Going back to the point Mr. Hugh raised about the current progressive-led government, this is a hangover from the progressives who developed a point system that is given the same number of points to a bus driver as they are given to a brain surgeon. And so the pathway to citizenship is completely unfettered. That is not what we should be intending here. We need to make sure which professions we want to focus on, and we need to target that in a thoughtful manner.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The next topic we're going to deal with is education reform. And basically the preamble is that preparing students and workers are essential for our future, particularly with the emergence of artificial intelligence. However, many employers report gaps between the education system and workforce readiness. So what reforms, Mr. Hugh, would your party pursue to ensure our public and private sector schools produce a workforce aligned with our future economic demands?
Thank you, Will. We certainly in our manifesto, which I think we're the only one who have released a manifesto, have outlined several programs that we will implement for education. We are certainly encouraged by the 12% increase at the primary level for kids achieving the national standard in reading in the 2019, under the 2019 curriculum. But at the same time, we saw that 60% of the year 11 students did not meet that national standard. We will continue to work with those students. We'll continue to also focus on early childhood education, but we'll continue to work on those students and support them through TVET programs, partnership with licensed overseas TVET programs that can also provide the experience for them, and ensure that once they complete the TVET programs, whether they're here in Cayman or overseas, that they are licensed to go to work as soon as they get here. We have too many programs where the kids are graduating, for instance, electrical, and they're not even graduating with their journeyman license. So they can't go out and get a job right away. They then have to go out an apprenticeship to just get a journeyman license, which is a pathway towards becoming a licensed electrician. It is our goal to ensure that each kid graduating from TVET programs will have the necessary licensing to hit the workforce. We also want to introduce school governance reform, where we introduce governing bodies that include parents and business professionals. We feel that this will allow parents and business professionals to become more involved in the operation of the school. We can provide that gap between the education services and the ministry to identify the needs of the school, and introduce things such as teacher mentoring programs, where we take the better teachers and have them work with those who are struggling to ensure that we raise the standards of all the teachers, especially in our public schools, and then we reward those mentoring teachers for those efforts.
Mr. Ebanks?
Will, folks at home, 1 minute does not do this subject justice.
Or two.
Education could be a forum unto itself. Do the best that I can in 52 seconds. What we are witnessing is a sociological disaster that we are still dealing with segregation. We have to look at education from early education all the way up. We need to look at programs like the ECAP that's now at 3 years old, have that age limit go down to 1 so you can have single working mothers can have more assistance earlier so they can get to work and kids can get training. Think about reintegration of the schools. It's going to be difficult for capital projects. So let's use the ECAP model for primary schools. If it's just as expensive or even more so to educate at a public school, you can provide eligible parents with that same system at the primary school level. And back to my referring to my last answer in four seconds, as kids come up, you pool that data between those three resources of Education Secretariat, Department of Work, and the portfolio of civil service, and join Caymanians with the jobs that are coming out and fast track TVET, because those are now more immune to AI. It's coming like a freight train.
Mr. Scott?
Thank you. 60% of our graduating children are below required level. 75% of our schools in the public system are below the required level. It's not for a lack of funding, it is a lack of execution. I came through the public school system, and when we came through, we worked hard, teachers delivered for us, but we were held to account. We also had a time that we would go through the vocational training. So folks, for example, my brother took a different path than I did. He was introduced to it early. We need to get back to that. Not everybody wants to be an accountant or a lawyer. Many want to deal with vocational things, whether it's technology, whether it is plumbing, electrical, and those jobs are in high demand, and we need to get back focused on a broader delivery so that everybody can be included.
Mr. Hugh, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just a few seconds. Thank you. Well, we will continue to focus on teacher quality and best practice and prioritize improvements in the classroom spaces. It's important that we also ensure that we prepare ourselves for the world that's ahead of us. And we spoke earlier about AI and the types of jobs that are coming up. It is never too early to start introducing our kids to those things. We have to invest in our classrooms, invest in the technology that our kids are not experiencing it after they leave high school. It is too late then. They need to start experiencing AI and other technologies from the primary level. And this is a commitment that we have made. We will continue to build in the curriculum, continue to pivot with the world as it goes into this next age of technology, and we'll ensure that the Caymanian kids will take up the jobs that we are working so hard as a country to provide inward investment in areas such as insurance, in blockchain technology, in other areas of fintech. We have to ensure that without developing the workforce to fill these jobs, it's all for naught.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh.
Turning our attention now to a topic that some may consider sensitive. It falls under the umbrella of human rights, values, and moral governance. The Cayman Islands Law Reform Commission, in its report dated September 6, 2024, recommended legalizing abortion without restriction up to 24 weeks of gestation. This has raised questions about how human rights, moral values, and religious principles should guide national policy. Mr. Ebanks, this would be for you to start. What is your party's position on abortion? Do you support the legalization of abortion up to 24 weeks, or do you believe that the legislation should remain where there is life from conception to natural death?
Tammy, thank you for the question, and drawing on my experience and also the experience of a number of my colleagues, myself included. I was a member of the Human Rights Committee, which was the predecessor to the Human Rights Commission before the country even had a Bill of Rights. The current position as it stands under the Penal Code is abortion is allowed if it's in the case of saving life. The Law Reform Commission's recommendations take into account more global standards. In order to move the position or consider to move the position, I think we'd have to have a further working group, not just to look at the legality, but the actual cultural and socio-economic effects of how abortion would be utilized in Cayman. As the Minister for Social Development, we have a unique situation in terms of the indigent population and the difference between the single mothers who are out there and the fathers who are out there. So I think it's going to require a bit more study that we're not going to be able to answer in 2 minutes or 1 minute in this session, other than to take it forward and understand and give a greater study and detail to see what is fit for purpose for the Cayman Islands before we adopt an international standard that may not be part of the Caymanian culture and fabric and what we need socially.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Thank you. I do not support the position of the Law Reform Commission. It's interesting to note that all the members of the Law Reform Commission, many of them are not closely linked with historic Cayman culture. Clearly, abortion is an issue that we need to consider. But again, we need to understand what we as Caymanians stand for. That includes, among other things, there are many cases we've seen where young ladies get pregnant, the families rally around and they raise the child. A life is critically important to us. We need to be mindful how we move forward with this. And indeed, what they're currently proposing, I would say, is far off the current sensitivity that we face as Caymanians with trying to have international standards imposed without considering our own culture, and we cannot move forward without doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Hugh?
Well, I think we finally found something that we all agree on. First and foremost, we are a Christian society, and that is first and foremost. You know, a lot of people disagree with it, but the church and God has been a part of the foundation of this country, and it will continue to be a part of the foundation of this country. This topic requires a much broader national discussion. This is not for any politician or any society to decide on behalf of this country. And personally, I certainly cannot support abortion without any restrictions. But again, this is a decision that the country will have to make, and we will have to have a national discussion on that.
Mr. Ebanks, do you have a follow-up?
I think one other aspect that I don't think the penal code covers, but you could bring a clarification question if you like, Tammy.
All right.
Is what happens in the case of rape. So there are instances, even though we all have myself in particular, deeply held religious views and beliefs that we hold dear, which are under the Constitution as well. But there are circumstances where we might still have to think about what happens in the case of rape. So there are issues that may require further examination, but again, that can't be a policy discussion that the three of us can stand here and answer in 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I just did a quick check. It seems like it's completely against the law except to save the life of a woman, which you pointed out earlier.
That's what I recall.
So we'll move on to the next question. It's also to deal with actually our electoral system and a constitutional reform. So some voters have expressed disillusionment with the current one-person, one-vote electoral system, believing it encouraged hyper-local constituency politics at the expense of national vision and unity. This goes to you, Mr. Scott, first. Do you support constitutional reform to adjust or replace the one-person, one-vote system? If so, what changes would your party propose to strengthen national leadership and representation?
Thank you for that question. We too, as we've been on the campaign trail, have heard folks who are less than satisfied with the current system. Our party would support revisiting it and seeking the will of the people as to what they think would be a better system. I'm running for Cayman Brac East, and I quite often hear folks say, look, we want representatives that represent the entire Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. My other colleagues are hearing similar things, so we certainly are focused and would welcome a review of the current system and take it again to the people. And this perhaps is one of the things that would, indeed, I would expect, would warrant a national referendum to determine what the next steps are. But certainly, I think there are a number of people who are not satisfied with the current system and think there's a better way. And there's been a variety of suggestions. So I think it is something we will focus on, we will study, and we will, again, take it to the public to determine what are the next steps.
Mr. Hugh?
Thank you. I do feel that some persons are unhappy with the current system. It has its pros and its cons, but I do know, or I do feel, that the UK will not let us go back to the multi-member constituency. Being a part of the team that attended the negotiations and the advancement of our constitution with the FCO, I can say to you that there is no way that they're going to allow us to go backwards on this. What we can discuss is looking at variations such as candidates at large or some other variation, but the issue comes down to equality. and it comes all the way back now to North Side and East End. Two constituencies that have always enjoyed single-member constituency. Kimmanbrack used to as well. And I can tell you that you will not implement anything different in North Side and East End than what they have without a fight from the people in those districts. So it comes down to equality again, where at one point, the people in North Side and East End and Kimmanbrack were saying Georgetown were getting 4 votes and West Bay were getting 4, but we were only getting 2. I don't think we'll be able to go back to that type of, to the multi-member constituencies.
Mr. Ebanks.
Thank you. From my recollection in my time as the country's representative to the UK and Europe, I think there was still talk about whether or not it's time to think about advancement in our Constitution. You're now dealing with ministers who are part of a $1 billion budget. So voters are understandably concerned where they don't feel like they have a say in who is actually commanding these budgets, who's commanding these authorities. So there is a valid point of view that we should examine the system to see whether or not there should be a form of bicameral system, meaning that there are perhaps local representation as well as the national representation, and the voter gets a direct say in that matter. But whatever is done, my strong sage advice is that it's done early, because it's going to take study, it's going to take a referendum, it's going to take education, and it's going to take the elections office to get up to speed so that we don't have voter confusion and then something backfires on the country.
Mr. Scott, would you like to add anything?
Yes. I think as we go down this, it comes back to how do we best represent our people? And the whole idea of having an equitable system is the cornerstone of whatever we do. But I do think there's enough discussion out there that it is one of the things that we absolutely would prioritize. We've seen, for example, in recent history, with the government, they looked at the Boundary Commission and simply ignored it. Those things we can't do. Election reform, even at the very basic level, needs to be something that we are focused on to make sure it is a fair and equitable process.
Thank you.
Shall we go for it?
Yes.
All
the
right.
Final question of the evening.
So we have an extra question now. You would have realized that there have been 12 questions so far, and they've been spread equally in terms of who starts and that kind of thing. So this would be question number 13. We have the time. So we are proposing a minute each, and we'd start here and go down. And it's not that difficult of a question.
So you say.
So I say, but I don't think it is. But
Not difficult to ask.
That's right. Not difficult to ask. So let's go. Marriage and freedom of religion. The Cayman Islands Constitution recognizes freedom of religion, while many in the community hold Christian values, as we've talked about earlier, as central to national identity. Tensions have grown over issues such as the legal definition of marriage and moral education. We had a whole thing with the UK over that. Will your party uphold the definition of marriage as the union between one man and one woman? Mr. Hugh.
Having been a member of the government that brought the failed motion on civil unions to the parliament, I would not like to go through that again, to be honest with you. I can say that again, coming back to where we talked about the church and religion being a part of our country right into the Constitution, even as a part of the Constitution, you will not be able to broach this subject without major public consultation and perhaps even a referendum. But I can tell you that the country, and I think there are actual legal challenges still happening. There is strong objections to going against the definition of marriage, of that being between a man and a woman. I do believe, and I supported the move towards civil unions. I think that was the right move.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hugh. Mr. Ebanks.
Thank you, Tammy. I've been around this issue in terms of being on the Human Rights Committee and also being the country's rep to the UK and Europe. And I was holding that post while this difficult issue was on full display, not just because there's no such thing as local news, the world. The position had to be rectified because the government/state's obligation is to ensure there's equality of legal rights. That has been completed with the introduction of the Civil Partnerships Act, which equalizes the legal position, and no further rights need to be conferred by the government. It's upheld its legal obligations. Beyond that would require significant consultation. It would require significant, probably more than likely, a referendum to the Constitution. So at the moment, we have equality of rights, and the government of the day and the future government have satisfied its obligations to the community from a legal standpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Ebanks. Mr. Scott?
Thank you. I think the Civil Partnership Act is fit for purpose. This issue we're dealing with is frankly a generational issue. If you ask my mother, who's 92 years old, she has one view on it. If you ask me, I'm fairly open. You love who you love and it's up to you. If you ask my kids, they have another view. So it is generational. And much like they've had in the UK, where it took time to move this forward, one way or the other, the same will happen in Cayman. Cayman, it is about understanding what our culture, what our history is. As we sit here today, this would not be one of the things that we would prioritize within our party. I think the currently established bill, our act, does justice and make sure there is equality. The rest of it would require a lot of consultation and indeed, I would say, a referendum to move it forward.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. We've gone through 13 questions, and now we're going to take a short commercial break. And when we return, each of our party leaders will deliver their closing remarks. Please stay tuned.
What sets CUC apart is they provide the students with a variety of opportunities for learning outside of the classroom. So the support with the holiday events as mentioned, but also through support of work experience. So the last couple of years, they've taken students to the CUC offices and supported them through applying the skills that they learn within school within the work environment. That real life experience is just crucial for our students. We'd love to see more workplaces and more utility companies or different companies across the island also join initiatives like that.
For generations, the financial services industry has played a critical role in the success and prosperity of the Cayman Islands. It's not just about numbers, it's about people. 2/3 of the people in the financial services industry are Caymanian. Their skill, commitment, and hard work power this industry. Together, we are building a stronger, more sustainable future for Cayman. Cayman Finance. Let's thrive together.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
The election news you need, the coverage you want, all in one place. streaming on cable and Compass TV with live updates on Cayman Compass. The analysis, the reactions in real time, only with Compass Media.
Welcome back to the Chamber of Commerce Political Leaders Debate. We've gone through 13 questions. It's now time in the evening for each of the party leaders to deliver their closing statements, and we're going to begin with Mr. Joseph Hugh.
Thank you, Will, and President Corwin, thank you all for this evening, and congratulations on pulling off your first leaders debate. I hope that this evening I demonstrated to the people of the Cayman Islands that my leadership, along with my leadership, the PPM team is the only team that's ready to hit the ground running and lead this country over the next 4 years. We have declared a hand of 13 candidates. We are the party with the best chance to field a government. We have no side agendas. We are not working with anyone else. I can't say the same for my opponents, but then again, after tonight's debate, it's quite obvious that they are one team because both of them are on the same page fighting against the PPM. They have no interest in debating each other, but simply the PPM. Even though we were not in power for the last 4 years, they're still crediting us for everything negative. Whilst one has never been in government and the other was actually in the government for the last 3.5 years as a minister, and then on for another year as a deputy premier of that government. Yet, everything that has happened seems to be the PPM's fault. We will hit the ground running to ensure a brighter future for our people by lowering the cost of living and improving the quality of life for our people. We will introduce strategic reforms in pension, in healthcare, and in public investment. We have done it before without borrowing. We have done it before while posting healthy surpluses, and we will do it again, just like we did in 2013 and just like we did through COVID. We will do that without selling government assets, and we will do that without crumbling under the pressure and quitting and leaving the country when you need us most. I give you that promise, and I say vote for the Progressives, the only party with a manifesto at the moment that you can contact us or go online at progressives.ky and download a copy of the manifesto. And you know that the 13 members of my party and myself are ready to hit the ground running to represent you come May the 1st. Thank you, and may God bless these Cayman Islands.
Mr. Andre Ebanks.
Thank you, Chamber, for the first historic forum. It was a pleasure to take part in it, and I thank both of my opponents for participating. It has been quite a journey. In my first term, I could write a book. Taking office, there was an ideal whereby we knew that the country had had enough of the Progressives' policies of open immigration, unfettered and unbridled development. And there was an idea that if a collection of minds could come forward and not drink the party Kool-Aid, we could make a difference. Although there were successes, it is proven that the same sort of interests that are all now aligned transparently was going to block transformative process to take Cayman to new heights. It isn't that Dan Scott and I are working together. It could be, and most likely is, the fact that both groups recognize that the future is not with the Progressives. It's more probable, when all the evidence is stacked, that the country is bursting to go into a new era that is free of side deals, free of vanity projects, free of breaking the rules of demoralizing civil servants. You now have folks who have a range of experience, deep international experience in our party, deep government experience combined with fresh minds to take this country together with the right mix for a modern and inclusive Cayman. Our manifesto is live on our website, votetccp.ky. I invite you to have a look at it so we could pursue a vision for a stronger, fairer Cayman, a modern, inclusive Cayman. Because I can assure you, with that mix, which also the Caymanian National Party recognizes, this team is bound to run the country into the ground.
Thank
That
you.
is what they're capable of on day one.
Mr. Dan Scott.
Thank you. Fellow Caymanians, a country does not need promise makers, they need promise keepers. They don't need storytellers, they need truth tellers. Mr. Hugh claims they are agents of change. Let's be honest, after years of the PPM's leadership, Cayman has had enough. As the current PPM-led government leaves office, they're handing us a ticking time bomb. Forecasted deficits of 26 million in 25 and 44 million in 26. 3.1 billion and growing of unfunded liabilities. That is their proven leadership. That's what it has delivered. Last year, the PPM-led government granted on average over 4 Caymanian statuses per day, over 1,560 in total. That exceeds the entire voting population of the sister islands. 74% of new jobs created since 21 went to foreign workers. This is unfair and it is unsustainable. As a result of PPM continued failed leadership, Caymanians are now facing lack of congested roads and schools, overcrowded beaches, and erosion of our country's culture. The progressives like to talk about experience. They are indeed experienced in failure as a party. And if re-elected, they will deliver for you more of the same. CINP has a different vision. We will lower the cost of living. We will fix our broken immigration system. We will make housing affordable again, strengthen education and training, protect our borders, and reduce crime. And we will manage our finances responsibly. We will serve with integrity and with compassion. And we are ready on day one to deliver results. On election day, we ask you to vote straight CINP. May God bless you and may God continue to bless these our beloved Cayman Islands. And to the Chamber of Commerce, thank you for hosting this. And to the two gentlemen up here, thank you for participating.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you again for participating in this inaugural political party leader debate. I'm going to now turn over the proceedings for some closing remarks from the Chamber President, Mr. Omari Corbin.
Thanks, Will. As we bring this historic debate to a close, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I would like to extend our sincere thanks to everyone who has made this evening and the entire candidate forum series possible. First and foremost, we thank the political party leaders for accepting our invitation to participate tonight. Your willingness to join us tonight allowed voters across the Cayman Islands to hear your views, compare your positions, and better understand the parties that you all represent. This open exchange of ideas is essential for healthy democracy, and we are truly grateful. To our forum panelists, past Chamber Presidents Shamari Scott and Mike Gibbs, immediate past President Joanne Lawson, President-elect Christina Spratt, Vice President Garth Arch, and Chamber Councillor Jason Nira, thank you for lending your time and insight throughout the forums. We especially thank AI Rentals for the sound and studio setup, and Cayman Spaces, especially April Cummings and Eric, for the excellent production and live streaming services. We also thank Lizette Anez from Story for the design work that brought the entire series to life. We appreciate our media partners, Cayman Mall Road, Cayman Spaces, ICCI FM, Compass TV, Bobo 103.1 FM, and Radio Cayman for broadcasting the forums and tonight's debate. To our forums and debate sponsors, Ashley Furniture and Home Store, CUC, Foster's, Logic, Affinity Recruitment, Compass TV, and Cayman Finance, thank you for your invaluable support. Finally, thank you to the voters and to the residents who've tuned in, submitted questions, and engaged us across the platforms. Your involvement kept us motivated and reminded us of the importance of these conversations. Thank you to Tammy and to Will for moderating tonight's debate, and a special thank you to Will, who has every day, every night been calling, been coordinating, been working behind the scenes and ensuring that every single detail was in place. So thank you, Will. And to everyone, thank you, and please have a good night.
For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com.
For generations, the financial services industry has played a critical role in the success and prosperity of the Cayman Islands. It's not just about numbers, it's about people. 2/3 of the people in the financial services industry are Caymanian. Their skill, commitment, and hard work power this industry. Together, we are building a stronger, more sustainable future for Cayman. Cayman Finance. Let's thrive together.
When you run your own business, you have a career as an accountant, stock taker, delivery driver, therapist, legal expert, mother, father, and the rest. But there's one area you don't need to be an expert in. At Brava, we take the complexity out of your business solutions. We keep it simple, so you can get along with doing what you do. Brava, the Simplify My Business company.
The election news you need, the coverage you want, all in one place. Streaming on
I will be tuned in this election cycle to CMR Cayman Election Headquarters.
Cayman, get prepared for election 2025. CMR, your election headquarters, is ready to keep you informed with candidate features, debates, analysis, interviews, and honing in on the issues that matter the most. Don't miss a beat. Keep it locked to Cayman Marl Road for your complete election coverage.
Hey Cayman, this election season, I'll be tuned in to Cayman's election headquarters, CMR, who else? So let's get informed and let's vote smart.